It is one of the most enigmatic and forgotten countries in South America, but above all, one of the most sparsely populated. We invite you to explore Suriname and discover why so few people live there. Let's try a simple experiment. Ask the next person you meet to name a country in South America. What are the chances that they will answer Suriname? Probably very small. The truth is that Suriname and Guyana are the only two South American countries that are not considered Latin American, since they were colonies of Great Britain and the Netherlands, respectively. As a result, they sometimes seem somewhat disconnected from the rest of the region. Located in the northern part of South America, Suriname also borders Brazil to the south and France to the east. It is part of the Guianas region, which has historically been known for the diversity of its colonial powers, including Spain, Great Britain, the Netherlands, France, and Portugal. With an area of 163,000 square kilometers, Suriname is the smallest country in South America, just slightly smaller than Uruguay. However, on a global scale, it ranks 91st out of 195 countries, placing it roughly in the middle of the list, so it cannot be considered an insignificant country in terms of size. In fact, it is larger than each of the 7 countries in Central America. Yet only about 630,000 people live in Suriname. That places it 165th among all sovereign states by population. It has fewer inhabitants than the tiny country of Luxembourg or even Comoros. When that population is spread across such a large territory, the result is an extremely low population density, just 3.8 people per square kilometer. Only 3 countries have a lower population density than Suriname: Namibia, which contains much of the Kalahari Desert, Australia, whose population is heavily concentrated along the coasts, and Mongolia, where 45% of the country's population lives in Ulaanbaatar, the coldest and one of the most polluted capitals on Earth. To make matters even more extreme, Suriname's population is far from evenly distributed. Around 400,000 people live in Paramaribo, the capital, and its surrounding metropolitan area. That represents 63% of the country's total population. Much of the rest lives in other towns and cities located close to the coast. If we look at the country's 10 districts, the situation becomes even more remarkable. Take Sipalwini, for example. It is by far the largest district in the country. In fact, it covers 80% of Suriname's territory. Yet only about 37,000 people live across that vast area. In other words, it has a land area comparable to Greece or Nicaragua, but its entire population could fit into only half of a football stadium. Sipalwini has a population density of just 0.28 people per square kilometer. Or, to put it another way, for every 1,000 hectares, there are on average only 35 inhabitants. If the entire world had a similar population density, the global population would be only 4.2 million people, roughly what it was about 10,000 years ago. It would be as if, overnight, all of Earth's land were inhabited by only the equivalent of today's population of Panama. Unlike the country's other 9 districts, Sipalwini does not even have a capital city. Instead, it is administered directly from Paramaribo. That is because it is an almost untouched land, covered with dense tropical rainforest that makes permanent human settlement extremely difficult. In fact, Suriname has the highest percentage of forest cover of any country in the world. More than 90.5% of its national territory is covered by forests. In contrast, the northern part of the country contains fertile lowlands. Not surprisingly, these are also the most densely populated areas. Although the interior of Suriname is unsuitable for intensive agriculture, it has seen the development of a significant mining industry. Today, gold accounts for nearly 70% of the country's exports. The extraction of bauxite, the ore used to produce aluminum, is also an important part of the economy. The reality is that, in addition to lacking large areas of fertile land capable of supporting a substantial population, Suriname has also faced numerous historical challenges that help explain its current demographic situation. To begin with, it is difficult to talk about Suriname without mentioning the Netherlands, the colonial power that maintained control over the territory until the country finally gained its independence in 1975. During different periods of colonial rule, the Dutch brought enslaved Africans and later recruited low-cost laborers to work on Suriname's plantations, especially the sugarcane plantations. As a result, not only Africans arrived, but also Indians, Javanese, and Chinese. This has led to a society that, to this day, consists of many different ethnic groups with distinct cultures and religions. In some cases, this diversity has contributed to a relatively fragile sense of national identity. Suriname's colonial period, which also included intervals of British and American control, was far from easy. However, independence did not immediately bring prosperity either. One of its most direct demographic consequences occurred at the very moment of independence. Around 100,000 inhabitants chose to retain their Dutch passports and move to the Netherlands. These people preferred the stability and predictability of the former colonial power rather than staying to build a new nation amid all the uncertainty that independence could bring. From that point onward, the country experienced a turbulent period marked by coups d'etat, corruption, and military governments. None of these circumstances helped Suriname achieve genuine national development, generate widespread economic prosperity, or build industries capable of improving the quality of life for its people. However, this situation appears to have changed over the past 30 years. Since then, the country's population has grown steadily. There have also been improvements in public health, leading to a higher life expectancy. Even so, much remains to be done. Alongside the legal mining industry, many illegal mining activities continue to expand, contributing to uncontrolled deforestation. Infrastructure also remains significantly underdeveloped. Although Suriname is well connected by rivers, it has very few roads. In fact, it is impossible to leave the country by road. There are no roads or bridges connecting Suriname to Guyana, Brazil, or French Guiana. The only ways to cross those borders are by ferry or by air. To make matters even more complicated, Suriname continues to have long-standing territorial disputes with both its eastern and western neighbors, disputes that date back to the colonial era. It claims the Tigre area from Guyana, a territory covering no less than 15,000 square kilometers. It also has a smaller but still significant border dispute with France, arguing that the international boundary should follow a different river. In both cases, these disputed territories are heavily forested and sparsely populated, meaning they would only further reduce Suriname's already extremely low population density. Ultimately, Suriname seems almost like an outsider within South America. It is a country without a Latin heritage, and people drive on the left-hand side of the road. It maintains closer ties with the Caribbean than with its South American neighbors. This is reflected in the international organizations it belongs to. Suriname is a member of CARICOM, the Caribbean Community, the regional organization for Caribbean economic integration. Its sporting affiliations tell the same story. The Suriname national football team competes in CONCACAF rather than CONMEBOL, where the South American national teams compete. Historically, the difference in footballing level between Suriname and the traditional CONMEBOL powers has been enormous. Moreover, many Surinamese footballers have chosen to represent the Netherlands instead. Some of the most famous examples include Clarence Seedorf, Edgar Davids, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and Aaron Winter. All of them were born in Paramaribo, yet they played in FIFA World Cups and UEFA European Championships, wearing the famous orange jersey of the Netherlands. But they are not the only contributions Suriname has made to Dutch football. These 5 players also represented the Netherlands and are the children of Suriname's immigrants who moved to the former colonial power. However, we are not going to reveal their names. Instead, we invite you to leave your answers in the comments.